Well, good morning. Today is day 3 of these Holy Week Devotionals, and today is going to be a little bit different than the other days. It's Wednesday, and on Wednesday, scholars actually debate as to what exactly happened on this day. The Bible doesn't really give us a clear picture as to what the Lord did on Wednesday of the Passion Week. Scholars speculate that after just 2 exhausting days in Jerusalem at the temple, that Jesus and his disciples spent this day resting in Bethany in anticipation of Passover. So today, very quickly, as I said yesterday, I want to focus on some of the Olivet Discourse. Now, this morning's devotional, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, is going to be a little bit shorter than the rest of the week because actually my Wednesday night message is over a section of this, and I'm going to be talking about Mark chapter 13, verse 28 through 31 tonight. So I encourage you to tune in. And it's where the Lord actually says, learn from the fig tree. And funny how so far all week in these devotionals, the Lord has taught us a little bit from the fig tree. Excuse me. So I encourage you, please listen to my message tonight that will be posted around 6:30. Now, I'm not going to read all of this today, but I encourage you to just spend some time just looking and spend some time reading Mark chapter 13 right here, and also go over to Matthew chapter 24 and 25 as it goes into greater detail as to what is taught and what the Lord says in this passage. Because we know that later Tuesday afternoon, Jesus left the city and went with his disciples to the Mount of Olives, which actually sits due east of the temple and overlooks Jerusalem. And here Jesus gave his Olivet Discourse, an elaborate prophecy about the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the age. And he speaks as usual in parables, using symbolic language about the end time events. Excuse me. And including even his second coming and his final judgment. But something I really want to encourage you with today is to pay attention to the urgency of this passage. Please, please, please pay attention to this. Folks, this is not just a sign of the future. I believe it's a sign for us today. The coming of the Lord is nearer today than it has ever been. And this passage is really talking about the return of Christ at the end of the age. And I'm one of the believers that believe that before Christ returns at this point, there is a point to where Christ will come for his bride first. And I want you to think about that. If we're seeing some of the signs of his return now, then that only means that his return for his bride is near. But more on that tonight. So you do not want to miss tonight, I promise you. But even in the midst of these times, believers, I want to give you some scriptures today on hope for this Wednesday on Holy Week. Remember John chapter 16, verse 33. Which Jesus said, "These things I've spoken to you, that in me you may have peace." And he says, "In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Just let that sink in for a moment. Really think this. Notice he not only can overcome the certain types of tribulations that we face in life, but he says, "I have overcome the world." So in other words, I've overcome all the tribulations. So whatever we may face, whatever we may deal with, even with the coronavirus, everything else that's going on, listen to me, friends. He's overcome it all. He can overcome it all. He already has overcome it all. But in closing, listen to Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 7 through 8. "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spread out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes, but its leaf will be green, and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit." That is a text that I really want you to focus on today. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and whose hope is in the Lord. But then that second part, verse 8, when he says, "For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spread out its roots by the river, and will not fear when the heat comes." In other words, when those tribulation times come, when the time comes like we're in right now, don't fear. There's no reason to fear when the heat comes. And he says the leaf will still be green. In other words, we're going to keep producing fruit even in the midst of these times. He says right here, "and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit." So church right now, hey, just because we can't meet together does not mean we have to stop producing fruit. No. Let's produce more fruit. on this Wednesday of Holy Week, let's continue to do what we need to do because we trust in the Lord as believers. So let's do what He's called us to do, and let's just continue to be faithful. Even in this time of, we think, a drought, hey, God is not drying up. That spring of living water is still flowing, baby. So let's get out there and let's produce all the fruit that we can. Let's have a wonderful day in the Lord. May the Lord bless you. And once again, tune in tonight at 6:30, and I'm going to be talking more about Mark chapter 13 and talk about the urgency to produce more fruit. I love you. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. God bless.